Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
United's final home game ends in victory and nearly 2,000 Blues are set to travel to West Yorkshire for the season closer this weekend. We look ahead to the clash with Bradford City on Saturday and give our thoughts ahead of the retain list to be announced next week. A time to spare.
I know, I thought
Very
you peaked
quickly.
a bit early there, like.
Yeah, well, I went a little bit too quickly. It's one of these things I need to practice over the summer, or maybe we'll change the way we do the intro so I don't have to rush it maybe, but there you go. It's one of those things I've always thought it's just over 3 lines is perfect in my running order intro I've got written down. But this week it wasn't. It was a bit too little, so there you go. How you doing, mate? All good?
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, it's not a bad way to end the season at home, at least last weekend. It was
Yeah, it was semi-pedestrian, but we got the result, you know.
it was
Always
kinda,
good to beat Steve Evans.
Yeah, it's kind of like a good pre-season game, wasn't it? I think is the way I describe it.
Yeah, like that last one before the goal, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's a little bit more of an edge to it than your average, game where no one really cares. But like I said, I'm going to say later on anyway. But at least it wasn't as bad as that Walsall game. I know I keep saying it, but genuinely one of the worst games of football you'll ever see. Awful. Well, let's get into the news then, Dan. Before we got into a few bits to fit in today, we've got to talk about season tickets, kiosk members meetings, and loan updates. But first of all, a bit of news that broke last weekend, didn't it, Dan? A bit of sad news in a way, but something to celebrate as well.
One that we thought probably worthy of a bit more of an ex-Blues, but Danny Livesey's retiring.
Yeah, hanging up his boots, Danny, Blues legend. He's announced that basically, I think they've got their last game at Brackley this weekend, Chester, and that's going to be his last game as a professional footballer. Basically, he decided to hang up his boots at the end of the National League North season. 37 now, Danny. He's basically admitted, hasn't he? I think he's done an interview with John Coleman this week. You haven't seen it. Give it a read. It's a really good sort of roundup of his time at Carlisle United, especially. Some really interesting bits I didn't even know in there about the fact that he was worried when McDonald came in that he was going to get dropped and basically let go.
Yeah.
Interesting that. But yeah, he basically admitted, look, I've only played 19 games this season and that's not good enough for me. If I'm playing, I want to be available and fit every week. And I suppose there's a lot of players you want to go on, when you feel like you're still doing your best rather than, not quite doing it. So fair play to him. He had a brief spell as a caretaker actually with Chester early this season, didn't he? He took over from the 2 lads who were in charge at Salford that took him there actually. He said he enjoyed the coaching side of it and maybe the stuff on the match day, but he didn't enjoy the sort of nasty side of having to drop players and that kind of thing. Probably didn't help that there were his mates, a lot of them obviously being caretakers. So yeah,
it's always hard when you sort of a player manager that side of it. I think
Yeah, exactly. So I think he found it a bit tougher. But actually, he's now going to start a new role, working at school for the Manchester United Foundation. So got himself a decent little role there by the looks of things. Quick look back on Danny's career, shall we? So obviously he signed from Bolton Wanderers on an initial short-term loan deal. I think it was I think it was like maybe Christmas Day or just before Christmas Day, 2004. He made his debut on Boxing Day at Morecambe in a game that famously was at the old Christie Park, and a story I think had paid for some scaffolding to be put up in the away end because it was a weird away end at Christie Park for anyone who'd never been. In that it had the terracing going up, but then it had a real big flat bit at the back, where you think to yourself, well, you could easily put more terrace in the back. Why have you made that flat? Really strange decision. He put some temporary terrace in. We had a huge following there. And Danny, and we were all a bit, got a player on loan from Premier League. He's played a couple of games, but he might be a decent player. He had a stinker. He had an absolute stinker in that game. I think we drew the game 1-1. It was a pretty much frozen pitch. You could barely stand up for most of the game. Thought, who's this donkey we've got? And it did take him a while to find his feet, but when he did, he really found his feet, didn't he? He became a massive player for us, and he made 333 appearances in League and Cup during his time with us, and I think he's in the top 10 for appearance makers, isn't he, of all time for the club. It's something that actually gets a little bit forgotten sometimes, because obviously Peter Murphy was here at the same time, and he probably grabbed a few more of the headlines, seeing as he got so close to Alan Ross's record. But yeah, he spent a good 10 years at the club and then left in the summer of 2014 after a brief loan spell with Wrexham. Then he had little spells at some spells at Barrow, Salford, and obviously finished up at Chester. Yeah, just fantastic. Obviously, pick out a few of the highlights, Dan. We're going to discuss about it.
Yeah, you've put half a dozen in the list, haven't you? The penalty against Aldershot's a good starter point.
No one will ever forget that, will they? I mean, what I'd say is the chance he gets for that, it's not a great chance. It doesn't scan very well. Danny Livesey, he took the penalty that took us to Stokes. It's forced, isn't it? A little bit. But it's nice that he has got his own little chance to remember him that way. But yeah, a fantastic moment. I mean, to show like the nerves he did to take that penalty after the pitch invasion from which certainly showed up Cumbria's education system, doesn't it? And mathematics standards. The fact that they thought the game was over when Glennon saved the penalty when actually Danny still had the penalty to take. But it's interesting, he said that actually helped him because he said, to be honest, I didn't have the long walk up with everyone looking at me because I literally just went to the penalty spot while they were clearing the pitch. So I was ready to go as soon as they took it. So really good. Obviously won promotion to the Football League with the Conference Playoffs and winning the League 2 title. He scored one of the goals in that game at Rochdale, didn't he, to win the title for us. Just being a part of that 2007, 2008 playoff run. He was, I mean, again, it gets a little bit forgotten just how good he was that season because Westwood gets a lot of the plaudits, doesn't he? And, Garner and Graham for their goals up front, but he was fantastic, wasn't he, as a defender in that division?
Yeah. When he was at his peak with us, he was one of the best central defenders in the division, and him and Murphy, and I think people forget he played alongside Kev Gray a fair bit because Murphy was used at left back and in midfield a lot.
Yeah.
Well, especially when he was beside Gray, it was very much sort of the old and young combination, wasn't it?
People do forget that a little bit. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't think he actually even played. You look back, he probably didn't even play that much alongside Peter in a lot of his time with us, really.
No.
Because Peter's obviously played all over the pitch, basically, in all kinds of different positions. Yeah. But when they did play together, it very much was, cultured left foot.
Peter Murphy was the John Mellish of that time, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a cultured left foot on him, Peter. Danny, less cultured right foot, but you know what? As he said, just get rid. If if you're not sure, just put it out, head it out, do what you want, kick players in the air. He was terrific at that. He was a real warhorse, and I mean, he actually ended up in the PFA League One Team of the Season alongside Kieran Westwood at the end of that season. It's one of those times you look and you think, if he maybe had a little bit more ability on the ball, he might have possibly been picked up at someone at a high level. But I mean, not many people make as many appearances as he did in his career. If you add on the times, obviously, since he's left us as well, if you count those as league appearances in the various non-leagues he's been in, he's probably pushing on 600-700 appearances in total.
Yeah, it will be, yeah.
Which is fantastic, really. And we can't really finish off without mentioning the through ball to Lee Miller that he did against Huddersfield in that famous game where we won 2-1. He was I say through ball, it was just a hoof forward, but it was a hell of a hoof forward, wasn't it?
It was a cultured pass.
A cultured pass, yes, indeed. I mean, one thing, he does say that it left a bit of a bad taste in his mouth, the way things ended at Brunton Park, and I tend to agree with him. I mean, it's difficult when a player's out on loan and stuff like that sometimes, but for a player to find out they're being released by looking on the website was just pretty piss poor, really, at the time, wasn't it? Especially one who's given you so much service, and he never got his testimonial that Murph did, and he was here. I mean, if you want to really, be picky, you could say he was here for 9.5 years rather than 10, but he was here for 10 years basically, and he should have got one. I mean, and it would be nice maybe if the clubs could look maybe to get one of the friendlies sorted in the summer for Danny to have a little testimonial or something like that, even if he doesn't play or something. It'd be nice to do that, wouldn't it, to show recognition? But I can't see it happening, to be honest. But mind you, with Simmo being back, you never know, I suppose. But hey ho.
I don't know so much about a testimonial. I'm not being harsh here.
No.
But certainly guest of honour for one of the friendlies. I think that would be
It'd be good because he never really got to say goodbye, did he? Really properly. I know he played in the Legends
No.
game the other week, but there was only 1,400 there, wasn't there? Really, so you want it when there's a bigger crowd, really, or something. Even the opening day of the season, just invite him back to come to the game and just say thank you, basically, for the service he gave to us at the very least. But yeah, it's fantastic career. Well done, Danny, and wish you all the best for the future. Okay, Dan, let's move on then. Let's talk about season tickets. They've gone on sale. I think this news came out. Did it come out on Thursday? And I think we recorded on Wednesday last week, from what I remember.
Yeah, we recorded just after the news about Paul Simpson had broken, hadn't we? And I think they sensibly waited to get the jubilation of the Simpson deal out the way to then announce season tickets. We did hope we'd get the hat trick with the kits on Friday, but no mention of the kits yet.
Alas, our present from Voldemort still awaits. Can't wait to see what the hell that is.
Barrow have announced their kits this week,
they have, yeah, some Puma. I mean, the home kit, I'm not so sure. The away kit's quite tidy. I don't mind that, actually. It's different. It's a bit different, but there you go. But
very non-league.
They are still Barrow kits, though, aren't they? So, yeah, so obviously season tickets details have been announced, and for the first time in 9 years, there's a price increase, isn't there, Dan?
Yeah, not directly. Those who are season ticket holders will get at current rates, which is, fair enough. But I saw a couple of people complain about this, and I did think 9 years we've stayed the same price.
It's a hell of a long time. It's a hell of a long time to do that.
Yeah.
It's basically it's a £2 increase in both seating and terracing. That's for both pre-match prices and for the on-the-day prices. It had to happen at some point. We couldn't keep going along at those prices and expect to be able to still get the same standard of players, still cover all our bills and things like that. I know people say, "Oh, things are tight for everyone at the moment." We've got to, our bills are going up for everybody. Well, so it's the same for the club. Their bills are all going up, so that they've got to, they've got to find a bit of extra money somewhere, really, haven't they? So. It's a tough one. In an ideal world, it'd be tenner to get in or something like that, wouldn't it? And 5 kids, but it's not the way the world works in the football league. So you've got to charge realistic prices, and yeah, I don't grumble too much. I think there's a few issues with some of the younger prices, isn't there? I think there's a few problems with them. I think they've resolved one of those problems when they realised it's
there was an FAQ came out the day after, and I think the £100 tickets had went to 125, and I think they then knocked them down a tenner to 115.
Yeah.
And there was also under 14s can't go unattended. Yes. And we think that's probably because there's been the odd little thing. There was that game where 3 kids ran on the pitch, etc. It's probably to do with that, isn't it?
The club have basically said that's what it is. Basically, they said, look, we've had too many incidents this season. We need to do something about it, and this is the only way we can. And yeah, it's not great for the kids maybe, but unfortunately, it's a few have spoiled it for the majority in that sense. And
as always,
yes. But interestingly, they didn't say that you had to have an adult with you if you were getting a thing. If you're an under 18, you can be the person who's accompanying an under 14. If there's groups where you one of them's 16 and one of them's 14 or something, you can do that way. So.
And also, the first 100 new season ticket holders got a special early buy rate, didn't they? Yeah. I think 60 people had taken advantage of that before they reopened this week or something.
A couple of days ago, they were at, was it 450, about 500 sales, I think?
Yeah.
Which is fantastic, really, for so early on. I've still not sorted mine, because I tried ringing them again.
I'm going down early next week on my days off, I'm no rush.
So there'll be plenty of, existing ones who'll think, I don't need to worry about it. Yeah, wait till the season's over, that kind of thing, sort it then. So, yeah, I'll be sorting mine. And I might even do it tomorrow. I might even give them a little ring and get it done. But yeah, fantastic. If you want more details, go and look on the official website. It's the best thing, rather than us reading out all the different bits and pieces. But there you go. So it's an extra £2. But you know what? Hopefully that'll help Simmo's promotion push next season. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? A little bit before we do the loan updates, Dan, about the Kiosk members meeting coming up.
Yeah, Kiosk have announced another members meeting next Thursday, the 12th at 7 p.m. in Foxes. Hopefully the bar will be open this time and it'll have been hoovered from the previous engagement. No, this is, there's been a bit of a few more people have joined since the whole Unit of 40 thing, and these meetings are basically your chance to go, ask questions, offer help, suggest ideas. You know, it's fine to snipe from the outside. We've all done it. Christ, I'm probably number one for doing it. But you know, if you don't attend and don't speak to the people involved, you know, you can't expect anything to ever happen. So, you know, if you're a member, try and get down. I do believe they're looking at some form of streaming for Exiles.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the Zoom worked that brilliantly last time.
There was issues with it, I think, wasn't there? But there are solutions you can find to that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Obviously, this is probably, I'm guessing, be the last members meeting before they have the AGM in the summer as well. So.
Yes, the AGM is July, when they vote people on and off boards and all that sort of thing, and
so it's opportunity
check
for people,
the account and that. So.
Opportunity for people to put themselves forward for the board and stuff like
that.
If
certainly.
If you've got the skill set to help, then I'm sure they'd be more than welcome to get more people involved, definitely. Right, let's move on to loan updates then, Dan. And some positives in this week, isn't there? I think it's fair to say. But should we leave the main positive one until last, and we'll cover the two National League ones first? So first up, Tristan Abrahams. Decent weekend's work for him?
Yeah. He came on as a half-time sub in a 2-2 draw at Barnet. Grimsby were 1-0 down. They were further behind at 2-0, but they got the goals late to secure a point. They didn't play on Bank Holiday Monday, but Chesterfield failed to take advantage. And is it their 2 defeats and the Grimsby point picked up sees Grimsby into 6 with 3 games left.
Yeah.
And a game in hand on Chesterfield in 7th and Dagenham, who were 3 points behind in 8th. I think that's what you wrote.
Yes. I mean, Chesterfield have absolutely blown it, haven't they, really? They're just, ever since they sacked the manager, obviously, the off-the-field behaviour thing, it's fair to say, they've just gone to pot, haven't they? And they're in real danger of missing out on the playoffs altogether as it stands. Quite incredible, really, when you look at it. When you consider the amount of money that's been put into them this summer as well, you'd have expected them to be up there with, you know, Wrexham and Stockport at the top of the division.
Who play each other this weekend.
They do indeed, but it's interesting.
Massive game.
If Wrexham win that game, then Halifax win their game and then win their game in hand. Halifax could go into the last game of the season playing a title decider against Stockport. They play each other on the last day. And no one's talking about Stockport. I know the chances of Halifax doing it are very, very slim. Something like 350 to 1. But they could still do it. It's not, out of the realms of possibility. Quite incredible, really, when you think about it. Considering the budget they've got compared against, your likes of Wrexham and Stockport. Quite an achievement for them. Well, let's move on to the other player in the National League. I hope everyone's sitting down when they're listening to this. Manny Mampala.
It's not that big. Come on.
Manny Mampala started a game of football. That's a big thing. Come on.
Yeah. There'll be listeners thinking he maybe assisted or scored the way
he did nothing. He came off after 61 minutes. 61 minutes. He didn't. Basically, they had a double header this weekend, like a lot of the National League teams did. Weymouth. They played Solihull Moors home on the Saturday, lost 4-2. Manny didn't come off the bench in that game. But he did start against Southend in a 1-1 draw on the Monday. Like I said, he came off in the 61st minute when it was 1-1 at that point already. I imagine that's one of those ones where the manager's probably looked and thought, I need to keep it fresh, basically, for this two games in the space of a few days. But there you go. Well, let's talk about the main one then, Dan. Mr. Taylor Charters. What a fantastic weekend he had. Because eventful weekend to say the least for him and Gateshead. They picked up 4 points. And as a result, have secured promotion back to the National League as champions of the National League North. Fantastic stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. He started both the games. Picked up an early assist in the 3-1 win over Southport.
Yeah.
But was then subbed at half-time in the 2-2 draw at Chorley. Gateshead were actually 1 down at that point. But they dominated the second half, went 2-1 up, but then were pegged back late on 2-2. And down at Edgley Street, Brackley were 2-1 up against Hereford late in the game. It probably wouldn't have been enough, but they failed to hold on. A late Hereford goal made it 2-2, and that confirmed Gateshead promotion. So, well done to Gateshead and to Taylor.
Yeah, they could have had a really stupid situation, Gated, if Brackley had held on, where they'd have been gone into the last game with a 20-plus better goal difference.
Yeah.
Technically champions, a bit like we did on the last day against Stockport that time. You're pretty much champions, but until the final whistle goes and you haven't lost 20-0 or something, you can't officially say it, can you? So,
it was like Doncaster's relegation the other week. They were down, but officially
exactly
they weren't in case of a 28-goal swing, you know.
Yeah, but fantastic for Taylor. Well done. We'll talk more about him in a minute, though, won't we? Because we'll be talking about the retain list.
One thing we've missed out, speaking of Doncaster, Gillingham and AFC Wimbledon joined Doncaster and Crewe in League Two.
They did.
Well, with League One finishing a week early. I still haven't worked out why League One's finished a week earlier.
It's because there's no bank holiday Monday at the end of May this year because of the.
That's right.
It's been moved.
It's moved to into June for the Jubilee.
Yeah, so as a result, they've had to move the League One to a weekend before, basically.
Yeah.
So it's the same weekend as the last weekend of the Premier League, basically. So there you go. So let's get on to the match review section then, Dan, where we'll also touch on the retain list at the end of this. We're not going to go into a massive amount of detail on the Stevenage game, but as you say there, United won this game 2-1 thanks to goals from Riley and Alessandra, and obviously Luke Norris got a late penalty for Stevenage to ruin the day for Mark Howard, I suppose, not keeping an assist on the final home game of the season. But overall, like we said, it was a
clean sheet.
Sorry, clean sheet, yes.
I was going to say, how do you keep an assist?
Sorry, clean sheet. You know why? I'm looking at my running order and I can see armour and assist, and I was just thinking, I should have mentioned that. But there you go. So, clean sheet. You couldn't keep a clean sheet. Thank you for keeping an eye on what I'm saying there, Dan. Overall, not the worst game of football you'll see, especially second half. Certainly stepped up a gear or two and got the result. I mean, you kind of went away from this game, didn't you, feeling pretty positive, didn't we, really? I mean, the weather wasn't the greatest, but it didn't feel like, a miserable end to the season, did it?
Well, I left the house about 1 o'clock to meet you, actually.
Yeah.
And it was, I put my sunglasses on because the sun was out. I got about 500 yards from my house and the clouds came in and that was it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, right, cheers.
Because we met in the little fan zone thing outside the ground. It's a good little setup they got there, isn't it, really? And it's one of the real positives, actually, I have to say, what the club have done this season, really. I wasn't drinking because I was driving, but yeah.
A lot of it has been trial and error, and, there'll be pros and cons for next season. I know they're certainly looking at a more sort of semi-permanent structure of some form.
It'd be fantastic if they could sort that out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So it was nice to have a little catch-up for all the games sat there. Just plenty of people, lots of families there. Good attendance, over 5,000 again as well. Shows the real Simmo effect, doesn't it? People really enjoy it.
Well, it was, what was it? I think it was 5-7, and there was only 100 odd of them.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to those Stevenage fans coming up with nothing to play for.
I know.
That's a long journey, that. But it was fantastic. It's interesting because the night before I was out in Cockermouth and I was talking, he'll like his shout out because I know he listens to the podcast. My cousin's partner, Phil, I bumped into him in the Cock and Bull in Cockermouth, and I was just saying to him, I've seen you been going to the games recently. He said, yeah. I said, I went towards the end of the Abbott regime and it was good, but then it started to get quite toxic in the crowd and it wasn't an enjoyable place to go and watch football. So I just stopped going, and I said, I started going again fairly recently, and under Simmo it's been so much more enjoyable. And my cousin's talking about getting a season ticket with him, and I was thinking, Millie's never had an interest in football to my knowledge. It's fantastic. Shows the effect the man has. It's fantastic. Yeah. It really is. But yes, it's just a great feeling about it. Let's talk about the goals then. First goal, Joe Riley. Great finish, unfortunately, but ended his game for him though, didn't it? Because he got such a good connection.
Tweaked himself, didn't he?
Yeah, it's a fantastic bit of play, isn't it? Dickinson on the left whips in a good cross, headed out to Riley, and he took a little touch, sort of cut across the sort of 25 yards to sort of the right hand side of the box, didn't he? And he just opened up nicely for him. We were right behind it when he struck it in the paddock and hit it so well. Little bounce in front of the keeper into the bottom corner, and 1-0, and it was clear actually that he'd done it straight away, wasn't it? Because he was basically trying to delay the restart by standing in their area. But I mean, you will have had a good view of that from the B stand as well, wouldn't you? Great strike.
Yeah, no, it was a good shot, deserving for Joe. Like I say, you could tell he'd hurt himself doing it. I don't think it's anything serious. We'll have more on that later, obviously.
Yeah,
But,
it's one of those ones, isn't he, with him? He's not had too many chances to play midfield this season, and he was playing a bit of a deeper role in this game, wasn't he? But second half, for the 10 or so minutes that he played in the second half, he really drove forward a bit more, didn't he? And he gave us a bit more purpose in the way we played. The man who replaced him, Luis Alessandra, he then got the second goal, didn't he? Which brought up an interesting stat someone mentioned. I think you were talking about this, weren't you? About how many times has the goal scorer been subbed off for a player who's then gone on to also score straight afterwards?
Yeah, and the first one that came to my mind, and I only remember this, someone tagged us, didn't they, on the official Facebook. I remember we played Fleetwood in the League Cup, and Sean Miller scored.
Yes.
And he got subbed, and Tom Miller came on.
Yes.
And I can remember Tom Miller scoring the winner.
Yeah.
And I only remember that because it was Miller and Miller.
Yeah.
But I had a bit of a look through Soccer Base later, and I think that was the last time it happened.
Blimey. Fair play.
Which was early 2017.
Yeah. Well, got to say, what a wonderful team goal this was, though. This was one of those ones. This was kind of one of those ones you see in some of those late season games and in pre-season where, a nice slick passing move comes together. Maybe partly because the opposition aren't trying as hard as you'd normally expect them to, but it's everything worked, didn't it? It started with a long kick forward from their keeper. Feeney does well to hold off the attacker and plays it to Gibson. He then plays it to Whelan. He played it to Dennis. Dennis actually did one of the best bits of this move. Really good bit of close control. Just played it around the corner for Gibson to get onto. He then gets it up to Alessandra in a bit of space. He does what he does well, holds it up well, finds a bit of space, picks out his man. Dickinson then plays it just about perfectly to Armour, didn't he? A little bit more the other side, it would have been behind Armour and he would have struggled to get out of his feet. But it's perfectly to Armour's feet. Takes a touch, and then he sends a low ball into the box, and Patrick. You first think, Patrick's messed up here. He should have got the end of that. But that Louis comes from nowhere, doesn't he? He slides in and puts it in the back of the net. Fantastic team move. And
I think the key with the cross from Armour as well was it was one of those. It was just for the keeper to come fully, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, too close to defenders for the keeper to come, and the defenders move. They get a slight touch. They're probably putting it in the net, aren't they? So it was a nightmare, but fantastic ball into the box. Really, really good ball, and put us 2-0 up. And again, we kept going. We could have had a third, but it was the third goal of the game was a Stevenage goal. At the time, this penalty, a lot of people were like, "What's he giving that for? What's he giving that for?" Now, Cameron, again, who's another one of our listeners, he referees at Carlisle City level, and he was watching it. He said straight away, "Yep, penalty." He's pulled him down. And everyone's like, really? It looks soft, Watch it back on the highlight. It is the blatant penalty, isn't it?
Yeah. I think those in the East stand probably thought, penalty. Whereas on our side, we were like, what's happened there?
It was hard to tell, but basically Whelan hauled down Cuthbert. No arguments. And Norris stepped up, sent Howard the wrong way, and got them a goal. But to be honest, after that, they didn't have another single chance at it, I think we just kept holding the ball, didn't we? And that's one thing we've been very good at under Simmo, not doing anything stupid if you do concede a goal late on, and just keeping holding on. So there you go. A few talking points to talk about, Dan. First up, we've got to mention, because I've done very well to not mention this yet. We saw a debut at the weekend, didn't we? The first team debut.
Jack Ellis.
Jack Ellis. A bit of a surprise one. I'd heard that he might be starting on the Friday from someone, and I mentioned it to you before the game, didn't I? I said, I've heard a whisper, it might be a surprise name in the lineup, and it's Jack Ellis. And I'm like, wonder where he'll play. Obviously, we thought he'd be in for Simmo. As it was, he was actually technically in for Mellor, wasn't he? He was putting a right wing back.
Yeah.
It should be said, he's a second-year YTS Jack. He's got a professional deal.
2-year deal, hasn't he?
He has, 2-year with an option as well, I think, possibly on the end of it, but I can't remember. So he'll be a professional come the summer. He actually plays centre-back most of the time, but also fills in at right-back and left-back. I don't think he's really played right wing-back before, so this was a bit new for him, and didn't do much wrong, did he?
No, he didn't. A couple of nervous touches early to be expected.
Yeah.
But as the game grew, he started coming into it, and I thought it was nice to bring him off just to get the applause. You know,
I think they could have made him man of the match. You know, I think that would have been a nice little touch just to give him, because you sometimes find out a young player in a game like that, you know, makes the debut. You give them man of the match. I know Morgan had a very good game, so I can't really argue too much, but it's one of those ones. Just give him a little confidence boost. Say he's man of the match. He didn't really put a foot wrong. What I liked about him as well is he was demanding the ball. He wasn't just, you know, pass it off to someone and then just stand around watching. He was then moving and wanting the ball back to him as well. And he actually made a nice little decoy run. People don't pick it up for Riley's goal. He made a run to go and overlap, and I was screaming at Joe to pass it to him. And obviously that opened up a little bit of space for Joe to get the shot off. So, yeah, fantastic. Looks a really good prospect. And he's not a little lad either. He looks fairly well built, so he doesn't look like somebody who's going to take a bit of a while to bulk himself up for the Football League. It'll be interesting to see if he starts this weekend, won't it? I wonder if he might drop to the bench maybe for this game, possibly. Go for a bit more of a solid lineup when we're facing Bradford.
Yeah, it's going to be a big crowd, isn't it? There's only about 17,000, aren't there?
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see whether he does or not. Couple of I just pick three other players maybe to talk about here. Mark Howard first up again. Some terrific save in this game, wasn't it, that he made? You wouldn't think he was 37, would you?
No, not at all.
It's incredible. One heart in the mouth moment there with his lovely little turn on the ball in his own 6-yard box with the attacker approaching him. That a lot of people were panicking in the panic, and I kept saying to everyone, "It's just annoying how really cool he is on the ball."
You're doing him a disservice. I've just looked; he's only 35.
Was he 35? I thought he was 37. I do apologise to that. I thought
he turns 36 in September.
Oh, well, there you go. Maybe I've just got a bit mixed up. But yeah, no, 35, well, younger than I thought then, actually. Well, maybe he's one. Because I was thinking 37, whether he'd stay or not. So, in my head, that maybe has changed my mind a little bit. But yeah, he is so cool on the ball, though, isn't he? Obviously, he grew up in, you know, the Arsenal Academy, so you've got to be, even as a keeper, fairly decent on the ball, don't you? But he takes every last second to kick it. He doesn't panic. If the attacker's closing him down, he still takes his time, doesn't he?
Yeah, he is calm. He is assured. You know, whether that's from, you know, he started at Arsenal as a youngster. Obviously, you can tell he's been up at that level. No, just we mention him most weeks, and that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's not like he's being totally peppered with shots, but it's just in the key moments he's making big saves, isn't he? When he has to, that's the thing that stands out for you.
Yeah,
didn't have the greatest game against Harrogate, but then again, who did really in that game? So you know, you look at that as a one-off almost. I suppose we've already touched on Joe Raleigh and how good it was to see him back in midfield. Bit of a shame about the injury. Corey Whelan came in for this game, didn't he? So obviously, Danny Livesey missed out because he basically hadn't trained with the team pretty much all week due to a family bereavement. So Simmo decided, I've got to be fair on the players who've trained all week, and he brought Corey into the starting lineup. I thought he had an all right game actually in that sort of right-sided centre back with the back three. Yeah,
he did all right. I'm not going to say too much on him because I've got something to say regarding him and another player when we talk about the squad.
I think it might be exactly the same player that I'm going to talk about. Two players. Anyway. So there you go. But yeah, no.
Does he have the same initials?
Maybe.
Not as in his name, the same one twice.
I don't know. Actually, no, maybe not. I'm not sure. No. Oh well, we'll wait and see. But yeah, so decent performance from Corey. Because one of those ones, he did look decent at the start of the season, didn't he? And he had that sort of almost, he just had to spell it in the middle bit where he just wasn't good enough, was he? And that was the problem. And I do think we'll talk about him in the
whole team was suffering at the time, though, wasn't it?
It was, and it was tough. And he sometimes, again, forget he's still only, 22, 23, isn't he? He's still quite a young lad. So, yeah, you've got to be fair in him too. So just like I said, the players did their little lap of honour after the game. It was nice to see the Clampets stay off the pitch for once at the end of it. But in all seriousness,
I was surprised at that, to be fair.
It genuinely was surprised. I was fully expecting, especially a few of them started gathering at the front. But fair play to them, they did the right thing. And because it's fine when you're getting promoted and stuff like that, but when you're finishing like 20th or 19th, it just looks stupid, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But no, yes, it was nice fun to get a little bit of applause. Except it wasn't like a celebration. That's the thing. People get mistakes sometimes. Oh, how can you applaud them off? It's just a thank you for their efforts over the season. And it's, you won't see them again until, July this year, obviously. It'll be a little bit different. But yeah, it was just nice to show a bit of appreciation for especially the efforts they've done over the last 2 or 3 months to drag themselves out of trouble. So great to see. Well, let's move on to the main bit we're going to talk about here, Dan. This might take us a little while to do this bit. We'll try and bash through it. The retain list. So we're going to have a little discussion here about who, because obviously the retain list, Simmo's basically confirmed today that he's going to tell the players on Monday. So the news will probably break Monday evening. That's what usually happens. It tells them during
Monday
the day.
evening, Tuesday morning, yeah.
Yeah, it's generally what happens with our retain list. So we'll know who's staying and who's going at that point. And we're going to go through and tell you who we think should stay and should go. Mike sent me an audio clip, and I'll remember to play it because he sent me an audio clip last week and I completely forgot to play it. So I'm going to try and remember to play it this week so we actually get to hear what he's got to say. Let's first of all, let's list who's under contract. Let's
go through this.
You go through the list of people who are under contract and people who are out of contract and all those details before we actually talk about who.
Right, under contract, we've got goalkeepers Gabe Breeze and is it Scott Simons?
Scott Simons, yes.
Yeah, both first-year pros as of this summer. So
are they? I'm confused by this because obviously with Jack Ellis, his pro deal starts in the summer on a 2-year deal. These lads signed professional deals last summer, even though they were still second-year YTSs. 2-year deals, but did they start immediately?
Remember who was involved in all that, so we'll find out in due course. I'm not even mentioning him.
It's not clear. It probably needs a bit of clarity. I'm sure the club will confirm it on the website because they usually put the details of how long they're contracted for. But there you go. Yes.
Defensively, Joel Senior, although October's penciled in for him coming back. Jack Armour, Corey Whelan, John Mellish, and Jack Ellis will start his 2-year deal.
Yeah. Should be noted, John Mellish has a 1 year. They're all 1 years. And we'll tell you the ones when they've got options. John Mellish does have an option, so technically you could say it's 2 years. Effectively, he's got left.
Midfield, the only midfielders who will definitely be here are Callum Guy and poor Josh Dixon.
Yeah, Callum Guy again, like John Mellish, has got an option on his deal as well, so he's 2 years.
Wide men, Gibson, Patrick, and Bell.
Yeah,
and forwards, Dennis. Shaw Silver, Fishburne will actually only be a first-year pro come the summer.
Yeah.
And Tammy Abrahams signed a 2-year deal when he joined us.
Oh, Tammy Abrahams.
Yeah.
Tristan Abrahams.
Oh yeah, do you know why?
I've caught you out with one of them now.
No, I was watching some European stuff earlier. And I'd been talking about Tammy Abrahams.
I'm so glad it's the first time I've caught you to one of those. It's normally me that misspeaks, but there you go.
I was talking about how Tammy Abrahams should be Harry Kane's deputy for England because of his form for Roma. Yeah, but that's completely off topic.
Yes.
We have a club option to extend also on Morgan Feeney.
I'm almost certain they're going to take that. I mean, it would be nonsense for them to not do that. Really.
Never mind option. I'd be offering him a new deal.
You basically tell him we're going to extend. We're going to extend anyway, but obviously your extension will be on your existing wage. Let's get you on better wages on a longer deal. Yeah. I'm sure he'll be up for that. But there you go.
So out of contract, goalkeepers Mark Howard and Norman.
Yeah.
Defenders Mellor and McDonald.
Yeah.
Midfield, Riley, Devine, Devitt and Charters.
Mm-hmm.
Wide men, Dickinson and Toure. And up front, Louis Alessandra and Manny Mampala. And then we've got the 5 loan players. How it's 5 is the running joke of this pod at the moment. Obviously, Simmo, Omatoy, Roberts, Windsor, and Lucas Jensen.
You know what? You joke about Lucas Jensen. I genuinely forgot until someone mentioned the other day that Owen Windsor was even on loan with us.
Yeah,
I
think
genuinely,
it was me and you.
we would like to say, like, oh my God, he's actually still on loans, isn't he?
He hasn't featured in a squad since I think it was Salford or something.
Yeah, since Simmo came
I think he was on the bench at Orient in Simpson's first game, and he's never featured again.
Yeah, that's fairly telling, that, isn't it? So
Yeah.
there you go. Right, well, let's have a look through then. Should we play Mike's clip? So Mike's given us what he would do, and then we'll go through what we do. So this is what Mike said about the retain list.
So for me, I'd really like to keep Riley, Feeney and Charters. And then there's like a rung below that with like Howard and Devitt, where if they stay, I'll be quite happy, but if they move on, I'll understand at the same time.
Oh, brief and to the point there. I was going to play this because it sounded like he was in a microwave once again, but there you go.
Yeah.
So basically, Mike would keep Feeney, Riley, Charters, and would essentially probably keep Devitt and Howard if he could, and bomb the rest off. Interesting. So he didn't actually say anything about existing players, which I think is one you want to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah, well, a couple. Our contract players, I'm exactly the same. I said a few weeks back on the forum, I'd offer deals to Howard that I could see him maybe wanting to be closer to home, so he could say no, but I'd certainly offer. Riley, Charters, Devitt, and obviously I'd exercise Feeney's option. Of those under contract, I'd be looking to move Abrahams on. The one I was on about with Corey Whelan is him and Danny Devine are very similar players in that they both can play 2 or 3 positions, and I just don't think Devine has done enough for me. And based on the fact that Whelan is already under contract, I would obviously keep Whelan over Devine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's not going to be a huge amount of arguing between us on this, really, is there? Divine looks at things.
No.
We've all got very similar reasons. Now, straight away, who would I keep? I was, definitely Feeney. 100% give Feeney the extent, trigger the
5-year
option.
deal,
Trigger the option.
anything. Yeah.
And I'd look to get him tied on at least a 2-year deal. If you can get an option in there as well, brilliant. You just tell him you're going to get better wage. We'll put, a release clause in there if a bigger club comes in. 1 million or $500,000, whatever, I don't know.
If you want peanut butter sandwiches at half time, you can have them.
Exactly.
Anything,
Exactly. Now, from the rest, I'd give Devitt a deal, but it would have to be appearance based, heavily based on that, basically. So your basic wage would not be particularly massive, but if he obviously makes appearances, it goes up to the level that you would expect for a player of his quality.
I also think, given his obviously tie to the club, but weighed against his recent injuries in recent years, I think there's a deal to be done with Jamie Devitt.
Yeah,
that would suit both.
Realistically, he's going to struggle to get another EFL club to give him a deal based on his injury record in recent years. That's not being harsh, that's just the reality.
No.
There might be National League clubs prepared to take a punt, and I know he's based down in the Manchester area. There's a few down there you could potentially look at. Could even, drop to play alongside Luke Joyce at AFC Fylde, somewhere like that. But if he really wants to keep playing EFL football, and I'm fairly sure he would, like you said, I reckon there's some sort of deal. And
he's 32 in early July as well.
You don't want a complete clear out of the squad. You don't, because as much as you say, you do that, it can take a long time to rebuild things and it can take a while. I think having a good character like him around the squad is just as important. And someone who gets the club and who can, when he plays, have a big influence, even when he's not, scoring goals or anything. It's like someone was saying to me, he referees games. You watch him. He's in the referee's ear from the first minute, and that can really give you an influence sometimes in a match, someone like that. And there's young players in the squad who could learn a hell of a lot from him as well. So someone I think Jordan Gibson could learn a hell of a lot from him, for having another season under him, definitely. Especially if he's going to play as a more central role going forward, potentially. There's a real option there. So Devitt, definitely I would. Charters, I'm a bit on the fence. Someone said this to me the other day, and I kind of agree with them. Is if he wasn't our player, if he was just a Gateshead player for Gateshead, would you be desperately thinking, "Ooh, we should target him, should be going after him, getting him in"? I'm not sure you would, and that's where I'm a bit. I'm in a difficult position. I almost wonder if it would be better for his career to leave, maybe go to somewhere like Gateshead in the National League, and build himself up again in a similar way that Pat Brough did, towards the end of his time with us.
On the flip side, having played pretty regularly and tasted success with Gateshead, does it then give him the appetite to come back thinking, Paul Simpson's here, he's not really seen me play much.
He was apparently at the game at the weekend, wasn't he?
Apparently, yeah, but he'll make, if you'd like to think he seems a sensible lad, he would come back after the summer break saying, right, I'm going to show I'm good enough to play in this team under you.
Yeah. And I suppose he wouldn't be on a huge wage either. The frustrating thing is you've got a situation where it's going to sound very, very harsh way to say this, but if Josh Dixon was out of contract, you'd probably be letting him go and keeping Charters.
Yeah,
but you've got Dixon's with us with his injury, obviously, for a while. Hopefully he can come back from it. I mean, it's going to be really tough for him. We know that, but yeah, I'm on the fence with Charters. I'm very undecided on it, and I wouldn't be like furious if he stayed or anything like that. I'd be quite happy actually, but if Simmo decided to move him on, I'm not going to grumble. I'm going to go, fair enough. And the thing is, I'm sure he'll sort himself a move very quickly because he's shown himself capable when he's been playing at Gateshead. So yeah, that's one. Joe Riley, again, I'm a little bit on the fence of it. I can't really decide. If you'd asked me back in, October or whenever, I'd have been saying give him a contract now. He's been fantastic, but he struggles to put pin down a place a little bit under Simmo. I think I probably would give him a deal. But again, another one where if he went, am I going to be that bothered? I don't know. I think there's a really good player there. I really do. Whether you keep him or not, I think he might get a deal. I think he might, but I don't know. I mean, for the rest, Howard, again, like you, it's one of those ones, he's been fantastic, but he is 35 and chances are he's probably, he will start to decline at some point. Do you get him in and then basically have one of Breeze or Simons as the backup, send the other one out on loan for half a season, potentially flip that around for the second half of the season, depending on the situation? Maybe, but
I think it would be a big ask for both Breeze and Simons to become a first-choice League Two goalkeeper in the first full year.
Oh no, I wouldn't expect that. If Howard went, I'd be looking to get someone in. Obviously, there's a few names popped up recently that we've seen. Actually, one particular that we both seen, and we thought, that'd be an interesting one. But yeah, Magnus Norman, he's not done enough to pin down a place over the 2 years. Time to move on. I don't think he's actually that good a keeper, if I'm brutally honest. That's just my opinion. I know there's a few people who rate him, but I don't really see it as much. For the defenders, Miller and McDonald's, definitely I think it's time to move on. Done well for us in spells, but I think he needs to go somewhere he's going to play week in, week out. Kelvin Mellor, again, I thought he was a great signing when he came in, but he's had a few injury issues and I don't know.
I'm not being harsh on these players. They're solid enough, but
can you do better? That's the question. That's the thing.
We want to be better.
That's why I'm looking at things like Charles. I think he's getting to 21 now. How long can we wait for him to become the player that we want him to be as a first team player? That's why I'm trying to look with that one. But there you go. Danny Devine, done nowhere near enough to earn a contract for me. Time to move on. The wide form, Touré's gone basically. He's not featured much recently, has he? So that's time to move on for that one as well. Dickinson's an interesting one. I think I would let him go. I'll make that clear straight away. But I think there's a good player in there. I don't think we've ever seen the player that we all thought we were going to see. He's never. I
think he's been unlucky with injuries here, hasn't he?
Especially at the very start as well. To get injuries like that at the very start was just a real kick in the guts, wasn't it? But he's always worked hard, and he's one of those ones. You've got to remember, he's barely played in the position he was brought in to play in, which Beach wanted to play him in a front three, didn't he? On the right hand side, cutting in, like a Nathan Thomas style player. But he's never really done that, has he? He's never really had the chance. He's played at wing back, which we know he can do, and he did when he was at Colchester. But I don't think he's quite built to be a wing back these days. He's bulked up quite a bit. You need to get up and down the pitch when you do that. I think he's done all right in midfield. To be fair, considering he's probably never played as a centre midfielder before, he's done a solid enough job, and Simmo does seem to like him.
Is he a long-term solution?
Probably not. No,
for the team wanting to be at the business end in midfield. For me, no,
absolutely not. I'd agree with that, but. Simmo does seem to like him. I know it's one of those things where, needs must and that kind of thing, but he's got in that midfield ahead of Devine most weeks. He's got picked there ahead of Riley most weeks. He's even been picked in there, ahead of Corey Whelan, who can play midfield most weeks. So Simmo does seem to like him. I think he will go, but I wouldn't be totally amazed if Simmo thought, okay, maybe a 1-year deal, but... There's rumours he's put his house on the market anyway, so I'm not sure whether he would want to stay anyway. And forward-wise, Mampala's gone. Bye-bye. Alessandra, fantastic.
Watch him get a 2-year deal.
Don't. Alessandra, been a fantastic servant these last couple of years, and we're huge fans of him on this podcast, aren't we? We think he's been brilliant in the way he's, when he's comes into the team, we play well. But again, he's not played as much this season, and it's probably time for him and us to move on. I wouldn't be amazed to see him turn up at Oldham again when he started his career.
If we hadn't signed Christian Dennis, I think there may have possibly been a sort of a super sub role for Alexandra. But I think Christian Dennis is just a little bit sharper.
He's got more of a goal threat, hasn't he? I suppose that's the big thing with Dennis. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, like I said, Lewis has been a fantastic servant, but it's just time to move on from that. In terms of the under contract ones, briefly before we go into the second half of the show, I'd agree with you. Abrahams has to move on. I mean, the problem I've got is I look at the under contract is we've got four strikers already contracted for next season, so we've got to shift at least one of them. We really, really do. I think we need to move one of them on. I think Abrahams will go, definitely. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Corey Whelan was told he could move on as well. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. I've heard someone say this. I wouldn't be totally amazed if Simmo said to Christian Dennis that he could find another club as well. He's not used him that much sometimes in recent weeks, has he? He's been a bit reluctant. I don't know. I'd maybe a little inkling that I wouldn't. I'd stick with him, but there you go. I think generally all three of us sort of agree, don't we? I think, although I'm a little bit on the fence on a couple of them, I think we all agree that that basically Feeney stays. All fairly agreed on Devitt if you can get the right deal. Riley as well. And Charters, again, we're a little bit on the fence. And Howard's the one we're all like, well, maybe. So it's generally an agreement, aren't we, on the players that will stay. Be interesting to see what it is.
Yeah.
He has said that it won't be a total clear out, and he's basically said some players will be offered deals. Just watch it be Feeney the only one who gets offered one now after we've said all this, but there you go. Right, well, that's enough for the first half show. We've gone on for quite a while here. So
just to go back to it, guess who's just scored for Roma as we're recording?
Tammy Abrahams.
Tammy Abraham, yeah.
There you go.
I'm surrounded by football. I'm recording the pod on my iPad. I'm using my phone for the notes, and I've got the Rangers match on the telly at the moment.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
Right, that's the end of the first half show. We're back in a sec to preview the final game of the season at Bradford.
This is John Mellish. You listen to the Brunton Bugle.
Big John there for the last time. Well, not the last time of the season, because we've got a couple more episodes to do after the last episode, but there you go. Just a reminder, obviously, you can subscribe to the podcast on all good podcast apps, whether that's, got to remember not to say Acast here because that's closing down soon, whether that might be Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the new one that I'm using, Pocket Cast, which is very good. I spent ages the other day moving all my podcasts over, a bit of a pain because I've got about 50 or 60 downloads that I've been meaning to listen to and never get around to, so took a while, that is fair to say. But yeah, so you click subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and it'll come straight into your little inbox every time an episode comes out. And obviously, you can give us a review as well. Always very much appreciated. And remind us, follow us on social media, on all the good social media. So Brunton Bugle on Twitter and on Instagram now. I've still only done one post on there, but I'll do another one soon. I might even do some bits at the weekend, actually. Me and Mike will do a few bits while we're on our way to
arty
Bradford.
pictures.
Some arty pictures, and do some little videos on the street, on the what's it called? Not streams. Reels and things like that. Yeah, basically. We'll do
get down with it, Rooney boy.
Yeah. So if you see us at the game, come over, and if you want to have a little chat,
we'll be on TikTok doing Dances that matches next.
Behave.
Good grief, no.
Behave. So yeah, we're on there. We're on the Be Just Unfair Facebook group on the Cumbrians.net message board, and you can email us bruntonbugle@gmail.com. And for the final time this season, I'm going to say to you, this season we've been sponsored the second half of the show by the Carlisle United Supporters Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee, Houston to Singapore, and of course every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips, as well as arranging many social events, supporters games, and they do a lot of fundraising for the club. They announced one this week, actually, didn't they, Dan? I saw about for the academy teams.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of grand for various bits of equipment for the academy. This is the sort of, I think, is it 9 to 16 academy we do?
Yeah, I think it's that one. Yeah, so fantastic to see that. They're providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season too. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. Now, there is not a Behind Enemy Lines section this week because when we did the Bradford one last time, I spoke to basically a random fan off Twitter. He was really, really good, but I just haven't had the time to sort something this week, to be honest. So there you go. And it's last game, so who really cares? Away pub this weekend, two options. There's the Bradford Arms, which is at BD1 3BA, that's the postcode, and the Sparrow Inn, which is BD1 3HZ. I would note the Sparrow Inn looks like quite a small pub. It's like a craft sort of real ale pub.
I think it's like a micro brewery, possibly.
Yeah, it is. So it's not the biggest, so you might find that one's full. So the Bradford Arms might be your better
There's
choice.
plenty of options, and I think there's quite a few blues on the train and drinking in Shipley.
Yes,
it's only about 3 miles in a taxi. So
yeah, exactly. Right, we have got a question of the week though. Mike has sent one in, so this is this week's question of the week, Dan.
So a notable former member of personnel this week is Greg Abbott. For how many games was he manager at Carlisle? And, again, whoever's closest wins.
Is he talking about league? Or you've got to be clear on these questions sometimes, hasn't he? Is it league and cups or just league?
I'm taking it as all games.
Okay, let's go all games. You get about... We'll do the answers later, but I've got to remember he had his caretaker spell where I think he must have been in charge for about 10 games.
Yeah, well, is he including caretaker or not?
Presumably including caretaker. So let's say 10 games for the caretaker. And then...
I've got a figure in mind already because I looked at his record a few weeks back for some reason.
You would have done.
I can't remember it exactly, but I've a rough figure.
Right, I'm trying to work this out top head. So you did 09-10, 10-11, 11-12, 12-13, and like 5 games at the start of 13-14.
Yeah.
So he's had 4 full seasons. So that's at least 200. I reckon I'm going to have a guess. Including the 10. A little bit on there. Half a season as well. I forgot about that as well with thing. 271 I'm going for.
I'm going to say 255.
Oh, I bet you're right as well. I bet you.
But I don't know if that includes a caretaker or not.
Ah, well, there you go. Right, well, we'll do the answer later on for that anyway.
You may as well do the answer now.
Oh, we'll tell you what. Go on then. Well, we've had a guess, so let's do the answer now. So here's what the answer is to that question.
It was 269.
Oh, I was 2 out. 2 out. Oh, that was close.
So I was 4 out if we include the caretaker on my total.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah.
Blimey. Well, there you go. Thanks for that question there, Mike. Let's get on to the game this weekend then. So obviously, game kicks off on Saturday, 7th of May at 3 p.m. at the Let me read this right. Utilita Energy Stadium, aka Valley Parade. That's what we're going to call it from this point onwards anyway. Referees James Bell from Sheffield. It's his second season as an EFL referee. He's taken charge of 36 games so far this season, handing out 113 yellow and 3 red cards. Interesting one, this. When was his last game that he took charge of United?
Well, I can read. So
you can read, so you know. The people listening are like, oh, what's the suspense here? It's actually the last game he refereed. He hasn't refereed a game since he refereed United's 2-1 win over Northampton. The famous game with the big crowd, wasn't it, that we got for one of Simmo's first games in charge. And gave us a penalty later on that game, quite rightly. Ridiculous on-ball decision from the defender. But yeah, so interesting that you don't see that very often, refereeing 2 games from the same team and in the space of basically the 2 games, isn't it? It's very unusual that. Head-to-head wise, 56 time we'll have faced the Bantams. Very, very close it is. We've won 20. There's been 14 draws and the Bantams have won 21. So very, very tight on that. Last season, they finished in 15th place in League 2. Their current position is 14th place on 55 points from 45 games. They're 4 positions and 2 points above United. So they're the team that at the highest that we can overtake basically on the last day. I think the next team above them is like 6 points ahead. So
yeah, audience, I think.
They're the highest point they can finish, Bradford, I think. So we can potentially overtake them. Obviously, the teams below them might also win, so we might not get much higher. But at the very least, if we win, we can go 1 place in the league at the end of the season. Their manager, this was. I mean, this kind of ruined Simmo's appointment, didn't it? Because it was an even more shocking managerial appointment on the same week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mark Hughes. I still can't quite believe it, can you? That he's manager of Bradford City. The thing that blew my mind was that he'd never refereed below Premier League level till this point.
Yeah.
Which is quite incredible. So yeah, that's Mark Hughes, the former Wales, Blackburn Rovers, Manchester City, Fulham, Queen's Park Rangers, Stoke City and Southampton boss. As I said, arguably the most sensational managerial point in League 2 in a long time. I mean, took the reins back in February when Derek Adams...
Since Sven-Goran Eriksson took over Notts County.
He wasn't manager, was he? I thought he was just director of football, wasn't he, or something? I think someone coached... One of his old coaches was the actual coach. Yeah. It was a strange one, but yeah, I do get your point. That was probably just as big, again, another former Man City manager. So he took over after Derek Adams was given the boot after just over half a season in charge. Didn't go well for Derek Adams at all at Bradford, did it? He just didn't really get things going. His CV speaks for itself, doesn't it? 450 top flight game, over 450 top flight games as a manager. Obviously, first managerial job outside the Premier League, bar obviously being the fact that he was manager of Wales for 5 years. He was player manager of Wales. Always tickles me that. You don't see that very often, do you? An international
Not
player
at
manager.
international level, no.
No, it's fantastic, isn't it? As a player, I mean, he was a brilliant player, wasn't he? I don't think kids today realise, the young uns will realise how good he was as a player for Manchester United. He played for Manchester United, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Chelsea, a few other clubs as well. But one thing he was known for, wasn't it, Dan? That he was an absolute bastard for a volley, wasn't he? I mean,
yeah.
Probably one of the finest volleys of the ball, other than maybe like Marco van Basten. There's an amazing clip, you've probably seen it on Twitter, when he was Manchester City manager and he's taken part in training drills with the players and the ball's played up to him like on the edge of the 18-yard box and he absolutely hammers a volley into the top corner and like you can see all the players standing around like, is that for real? And he must have been at this point probably about 48, 49. So he's no spring chicken by then. So yeah, brilliant. I mean, there's a big question about whether he'll be able to do it with a sort of lowest standard of play, but I think he deserves it. There was a bit of mocking when he sort of got it, wasn't there? And I think he deserves a bit of credit, doesn't he? For the fact that he's dropped it. He said to himself, basically, I want to challenge myself, see whether I can actually do it with players at this level. I think he maybe deserves a bit more credit than he gets for doing that.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just distracted there because there was a goal on the telly. I've done one not cheer there, but no, I think Mark Hughes has been promised a lot to take this job.
Yeah,
it'll be very interesting to see their summer business. Are they really going for it this summer? And they've had false dawns for 2 or 3 years. Yeah. I think he's been promised a war chest as well.
Possibly, and the thing is, you'd imagine just his name is going to be enough to attract some players to go there.
Of course it is.
Because a lot of these will be, players who will still have a vague memory of him as a player. Quite a few of them. You probably get into. It's probably more nearer my age and your age, isn't it? They'll remember him in his pomp and his prime, but they might remember him when he was at Blackburn. He was still, cutting it up a bit in the Premier League with them and things like that. So
well into his late 30s as well.
I think he was 40 when he played at Blackburn, wasn't he? At the very end, possibly.
Not far off anyway.
And he dropped back from being a striker to being a midfielder by then as well, and he was a very, very good holding midfielder towards the end of his career. But yeah, I think he deserves a bit of credit for actually taking the chance there, and like I said, I imagine come mid-July when we do our season preview podcast, I have a feeling we'll be talking about them as one of the top 3 contenders this summer. I really do. I think we all went for them in the playoffs last year, didn't we? And that didn't work out. But you've just got this feeling that Hughes is going to be the man who takes them to the next level. Last time out, quite an impressive win actually. This wasn't it, 4-1 at playoff chasing Sutton. Didn't see this one coming because Sutton had been flying.
I don't think many people did.
The goals came from a Charles Vernon brace and strikes from Jansen Ogo and Andy Cook. We haven't mentioned for a while, have we? I think he's been injured a bit, hasn't he, lately? So yeah, good to see him back on the score sheet. Form-wise, they're 14th, so they're pretty average at the moment, where they are on the table, essentially, in terms of form. Record of lost, drawn, lost, 1-1. United are currently 18th in that form table. One, obviously, their last 2 games. One obviously being the one against Sutton. The other one was against Scunthorpe, so probably don't read too much into that one. I think it's fair to say. Have a quick look through their squad, Dan. It's interesting. It's very top-heavy, isn't it? And when I say top-heavy, I mean they've got a lot of forwards in the squad.
Yeah, they've got a lot of forwards on loan.
They definitely have, yeah. Some interesting names in there, isn't there? I mean, obviously, in terms of defence, actually, there's not a huge amount in there, is it? It does look a little bit thin in terms of defence. Yeah. I mean, Oscar Frelkald's one that I've always rated, but they don't seem to rate him at all. They seem to think he's quite poor, the Bradford fans. Podie O'Connor is a bit of a head case, I think, isn't he? He's one who likes to fly into tackles. And
he's a proper League Two defender, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Midfield-wise, Jansen Ogo's, fairly solid sort of holding midfield at this level, isn't he?
Elliot Watt, former Lobby, and apparently, was it Hull were linked with him?
I wasn't that impressed with him when we played them. I really wasn't. And he's always struck me as a little bit of a luxury player at this level. Very decent on the ball, got a really good set piece in him.
He's one of those that we say he would be better in League One than League Two.
I think I'd agree with you on that one. And I think he's one who would maybe be a little bit more protected higher up. If he gets a few kicks in a game, he just doesn't want to know. He's not interested, isn't he? He just loses total interest. So yeah, he's an interesting. Callum Cook's been a very good player for them as well. And again, another one who's had a few injuries, I think. But as you mentioned, forwards-wise, they've got loads in there, haven't they? I mean, a few of them have been injured this season. Abu Isa possibly could feature this weekend, but he's missed pretty much all of this season, I think, with injuries since he signed from Scunthorpe. Charles Vernon's one that we all thought what a fantastic signing he would be for them. And again, he's not really done it, has he? Alex Gilead, another former Blue. I think he's probably been one of their better players this season. I think he sits a bit deeper these days, doesn't he? Rather than playing as a winger. Two of the lone players, Tom Elliott from Salford City, just a big lump, really, isn't he, up front? I mean, I'm tempting fate here. He'll probably score the winner of the weekend now I've said that. But Nathan Del Fuenzo, one that we were allegedly linked with in January, didn't turn up here, ended up at Bradford. He's been released by Bolton, though, hasn't he, actually? So he's already not got a club for next season. He knows that going to this game. So it'll be interesting to see whether he actually wants to play or not. Because if you know you're going to be out of contract, I'm guessing he probably knew that was going to be coming already, didn't he, I suppose? So it won't be as much of a problem. But yeah, other than that, obviously Andy Cook and Jamie Walker from Heart is one who's done well up there. Yeah, there's some talent in attack, but there's a defence there. I think you can get at, isn't there?
Yeah, they've obviously chopped and changed a lot up front, haven't they? It's I've not seen that many strikers on a squad list for a long time. 9 or 10 of them, is it?
Yeah, I think some of them might play a bit. Like I said, Gilead doesn't really play as a striker these days, does he?
Andy Cook has actually played most games this year. He came back at the start of the year. He just hasn't scored that much.
Oh, wow. He's just not been scoring.
Yeah, I've just looked at his record there.
Interesting.
But, a bit of a strange mixture of squad, and one that undoubtedly, I'm pretty sure Mark Hughes has used these couple of months in charge to decide what he wants.
Well, I noticed the other day they've given Lee Angle a new 1-year deal for next season already. So he's clearly been impressed with what he's done. He's someone who's clearly knuckled down and shown what he's capable of, and as a result has earned himself a deal for next season. There's a couple of interesting points I've spotted about them. They've appointed a new head of recruitment, which is Stephen Gent from Middlesbrough. He was their chief scout at Middlesbrough, so that's quite a decent appointment, isn't it, really? Obviously, we're going to be appointing a head of recruitment very soon, so it'll be interesting to see who comes in to do the role for us. Can't do any worse than the last bloke who's responsible for that kind of thing. And the other thing that really tickled me was Real Madrid used Bradford City's team bus to go to the Etihad for their Champions League semi-final of the week. I thought I really liked that. I really enjoyed that when I saw that, but that's quite funny. But there you go.
I wonder if we're going to use it for the final.
Maybe they do. Maybe a bit lucky, maybe. You never know, but there you go.
Get it sent to Charles de Gaulle to pick him up at the airport.
Yep. Let's talk about United then, Dan. Injuries-wise, I mean, you might have a bit more of an update on this because I think Simmo's done an article.
Yeah,
a chance to read it.
just before we started recording, the club put out an injury update. Jamie Devitt's not going to be ready.
Yeah, it's a shame.
And they're not going to risk Toby Shaw-Silver either.
No, it's common sense, that, isn't it, really? You don't really would take a chance.
I didn't see any mention of Joe Riley, so I assume it was just a tweak.
Yeah, hopefully.
He should be okay. He did say he was struggling to fill the bench.
Yeah, so I do wonder if maybe they're just keeping quiet on Joe and they're just leaving it to the last minute to check whether he's fit or not.
But you maybe even see Owen Windsor on the bench.
You know what? If he doesn't feature on the bench, that tells you a lot about him and his attitude.
Well, yeah.
And maybe his future in football, possibly, because if you can't even get to the bench when basically every bugger's falling on the floor. I mean, Guy Senior and Dixon obviously are all out long term, so they won't feature either. You just see if Lewis Bell actually features because he's not been on much, has he? So, and he's obviously under contract for next season, so you'd think you'd want to maybe have a little look at him, but yeah, he just doesn't seem to be able to force his way in, does he? So in terms, obviously, the fact that we're struggling to get players together and everything, what do you do if Riley's out? Do you maybe bring? You have to bring Devine into the starting lineup if he's fit, aren't you? I guess.
You probably would. Simmo comes back in, obviously.
Yeah, Simmo come back in for Wheeling, you'd imagine, for one last song. Hopefully he'll get that goal finally. That's what we're all dreaming of.
Could Wheeling step into the middle?
Maybe, but
off the back of a semi-decent performance last week.
I really worry when he's in midfield. I'm not convinced by him as midfielder at all, so I wouldn't go that route personally. Yeah, in terms of the rest of them, Jack Ellis, does he start again? Does he stick with him? Or does he bring Mellor in?
To be fair to the lad, he deserves to.
Yeah. I think if he comes out, he certainly won't be a mark on how he played against Stevenage. It may be more a case of thinking...
Big crowd away game, put him on the bench type thing.
And he's probably going to be coming up against a better player on their left wing than Stevenage had. So it may be a case of stick Mellor in there, a bit of experience... see through it, and if bring him on late on for the big crowd experience, if you have to, be nice to get a couple of those young players on the pitch late on. Maybe subs if things are going well. Maybe you have to wait and see. So let's have our predictions then, Dan. So do you want to go first?
I am going for a ding dong end of season 3-all draw.
Ooh.
And
goals?
The goal scorers.
I think I know who one of them's going to be. I know one is going to be.
But we're both going to say who's going to score the third goal. I think Christian Dennis will score his dual goal. I think he deserves one, especially after his work in the build-up for that team goal last week. I'm going to get Jordan Gibson to nab one against his former club. And then, when we're 3-2 down, 96 minutes, he's going to end up on top of that double-decker stand. Big Dimmel, he's going to smash a header in. Yeah. And I mean one of them where the keeper goes in the back of the net with the ball in his hand type thing. Yeah,
brilliant. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Let's do Mike's then before I do mine. Here's Mike's prediction.
So I'm going for a 3-1 win with Gibson, obviously, Patrick, obviously, and we'll get Daniel Simmo will score simultaneously the most pointless and also most celebrated goal that the club has seen for the past 10 years.
There you go. Well, guess what I'm going to go for? I'm going to go for a 4-3 win. I'm going to go for.
Do you know something? Before you give yours,
God,
if we get a penalty, just let him take it for the.
Yes, I don't care whether
shits and giggles
for the banter of it. Definitely, absolutely. Yeah. So in terms of my prediction, I'm going to go for a 4-3 win. And my goals are going to be Amari Patrick, Jordan Gibson. Can you guess what the next one's going to be? Danny Devine
Danny
to score in his
Devine.
last game. And no, not Kelvin Miller. Didn't Simmo is going to get the winning goal.
Well, no, Kelvin Miller would have been another ex-Bradford player.
That's what I'm saying. I nearly said Kelvin Miller, so there you go. That's the predictions out the way. Right, Dan, it's time for the X-Files section. It's a bit you do each week. A bit quiet on the goals-wise, but promotions-wise and relegations, etc.
Well, I'm actually I'm updating as I'm reading here.
Oh, has there been goals maybe in the Europa League?
Gary Medine missed a penalty for Blackpool in a shock 2-0 home defeat to relegated Derby. John O'Sullivan, we haven't heard him for a while, scored in Accrington's mad 4-3 win at AFC Wimbledon, which obviously relegated Wimbledon. Joe Garner continued his recent form, scored in Fleetwood's 4-2 defeat at Bolton. Andy Cook, as you mentioned, scored in Bradford's 4-1 win. Callum Higginbottom scored in Kelty Hearts' 2-1 win up the road at Annan. And Kedwin Scott scored again for Gateshead in the 3-1 win. Paddy Madden scored a late penalty in Stockport's 1-0 win over Chesterfield.
Big win.
And James Tavernier has scored tonight for Rangers as we're recording.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Yeah.
Could be playing a European
promotions
final.
and relegations, we've got quite a few, haven't we?
Yes, it's been a busy one.
We missed one last week.
We did.
Dean Furman, he's at Warrington Rylands, obviously at Workington's expense. He, funnily enough, I think I was on LinkedIn the other day.
Yeah, you were saying this.
Someone had liked a video. Someone I'm friends with, connected with. He's been training to be a financial advisor for a few years. So he's into all that now.
And who commented on the post that you saw?
Oh yeah, Dylan Kerr. There's an ex-Blue for you. Maltese, Dylan Kerr. And he's manager of a team in South Africa, which is obviously where he knows him from.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, fantastic.
The wonderful world of football.
Yeah.
Tim Krull was relegated with Norwich to the Championship, but Jack Stacey went up to the Premier League with Bournemouth.
Completely forgot he was at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Just completely forgot about it.
Ben Amos and Charlie Wyke, champions with Wigan, promotion back to the Championship. Josh Coyote also up to the Championship with Rotherham in second. Tom Anderson and Adam Clayton relegated to our league with Doncaster. Ditto Sam Cosgrove with Wimbledon and Max Amer with Gillingham. Yeah. Jason Kennedy promoted with Marsk United to the Northern Premier League Premier Division via the playoffs.
Fantastic. Really good to see Jason doing well, isn't it?
Yeah. Adam Campbell, Conor Malley and Kedwin Scott up to the National League with Gateshead, as we've mentioned many times recently. And Carlisle City won the Northern League Division 2 title. What a run of wins they put together. And
how many was it?
Basically, it was a few. They had to win the last game and hope the rivals drew. No better than a draw. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And it turns out, that game where they scored about 20 against Durham?
Yeah.
That's what won them the league, that game.
Wow.
Because of the goal difference. Obviously, a lot of ex-Blues, mainly young lads. Dan Kirkup, Jordan Holtkid, and also Adam Bradbury, Keelan Kerr, and Paul Simpson's nephew, Josh.
Yeah, I think that's all of them. I was looking for the squad list, and I couldn't really tell if there was any I'd missed. I might have missed a couple.
Yeah, there probably is. There probably is. Yeah. A couple of other bits. John Sheridan is staying on at Oldham after their relegation. That'll be interesting.
Not necessarily a bad move from them, really, is it, to keep him there, really? Because I think he's someone who... It depends if they can change owners, though, doesn't it? That's the big problem.
Jack Iredale turned down a new deal at Cambridge. He's been linked with Bolton already.
Yes, I think he's...
Suggestion seems to be that's
a done deal.
Almost a done deal. Danny Livesey, who we mentioned at the top of the show. Never used that word before, the top of the show, have we?
Yeah.
Sounds very professional, doesn't it? Unlike us.
Nope.
He was named in the National League North Team of the Week, quite fitting in his last couple of games. And one who is not an ex-Blue, but because he only played on trial, but Lawrence Shankland, the one we should have signed, Keith. Curl, not Millen. He got relegated with his team in Belgium, and he's been linked with Hearts, I think it was. Was it Hearts, I said?
Someone like that, yeah. I let you have this one in every time. I don't know why I do, because you always shoehorn it in somehow, but there you go.
Cosgrove and Shankland would have took us to the league.
Well, Cosgrove on current form certainly wouldn't, the way he's playing since Just a terrible move that for him to Birmingham, wasn't it? Just hasn't worked out at all. But I mean, it worked out for us.
It probably wasn't. He probably gets a good wage off it.
No, true. But for us, it worked out as well. We got a nice tidy little sell on from that. Yeah, Viva Clipper with his wonderful negotiating skills to get that.
Guys, we've rattled on tonight, haven't we?
We certainly have, especially considering we haven't actually got a opposition section bit in it. But there you go. Plenty of talk about the contracts there, wasn't it? It's something we really needed to discuss a little bit this week.
And we'll obviously, when the retained list's out on next week's episode with a review of Bradford and that, we'll talk a bit more in depth about where we need to strengthen and that with
absolutely
and decisions made.
Yeah, I should say a big thank you once again to our sponsors, the London branch. We're in early talks about them extending that deal for next season, so that'd be fantastic.
I was privy to the discussion. It was a very long and drawn out. No, it took about 30 seconds, if that.
yes. So hopefully we'll have something to talk for next season. That's brilliant. Yeah. It's been great to have the support of them, and we know it's really helped.
Yeah, definitely helps
as well.
us. Yeah.
So it's great stuff.
And just one thing I was going to mention. Obviously, we plugged the 100th episode with John Coleman. Thanks to all the new listeners off the back of that.
Yeah.
Because you keep an eye on the analytics, and there was a bit of a spike, wasn't there? So
yeah, we definitely.
We'll hope you're here to stay.
We won't give too many figures away. About a 25% spike in listeners, which is really fantastic, really. And it's not working from that lower base before some smart ass makes a comment. But no, it's brilliant to get so many people listening. And what we'll do is we'll try and stick that up again. The article, if you haven't read it yet, that John did, it was really, really fantastic. The coverage he gave us, really good. In terms of upcoming episodes, what we're going to do is we're going to...
We'll be doing a proper episode next week, which will cover Bradford and the retained list.
I'm looking potentially for the Bradford game. Me and Mike might just record some stuff on the day at the game, because you're not going now because you're working.
So. No, I'm working. I'm working Saturday morning.
So me and Mike might just record a few little bits on the day at the game, so we've got that covered. And then what we'll do is we'll do an episode for the retain list, as you said, and we'll discuss what we need to do for next season. We might even have some news on the head of recruitment by then, possibly. You never know. And there'll be a few of the little bits. So we might even discuss a few of because a lot of clubs will have done their retain list by then. We might have a little quick look through and see if there's any names that stand out straight away. I know we've both spotted a few already. I know people have already said about Reece Bennett. We didn't mention actually he's been released by Morecambe.
Yeah, League One have already started doing theirs, haven't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd have Bennett back, to be brutally honest, personally, but there you go. We'll discuss that at a later date. But yes, that's the plan, and obviously the week after that we'll see what's happening. We might do another follow-up episode. We might have a couple of weeks off before we do anything more, but there you go. So that's this week's episode done. Dan, thanks once again. Thanks once again, everyone, for listening. Really appreciate it, and most importantly, up the Blues.
Up the Blues.